Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, everybody. Welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 61st iteration. Today is the 3rd of November.
Remember the 3rd of November.
I don't know if it's the 3rd.
Well, they didn't make the date be the rhyming part, so any day in November technically works with the rhyme.
Remember the something of November. Sometime in November, anyway, some dude in history tried to blow up Parliament, and...
now that's why Anonymous has that funny mask. The end.
Good, there is your... and that's our podcast for today. Thanks for listening, everybody. And
short but sweet.
I should introduce myself. I am Josh Treleman. I should introduce my partner in podcast host.
I prefer partner in crime, but okay.
Well, I didn't want to say crime because we're not committing... Okay, anyways, across from me is Ryan Kirkby. Hey,
I can do mad rhymes and mad crimes. It can work either way. I'm Ryan Kirkby, though.
Okay.
How was your week this week, Josh?
Oh, how was my week? Well, I mean, it's the same as always. A little bit of work, a little bit of video games, a little bit of Minecraft, a little bit of exploring new territory and discovering new villages. I'm trying to map out as much as I can before the new update because it's going to change the terrain. So I want to have a really big world, like already established, and from there move on to explore even more world and even more different stuff.
Ah, very nice.
So yeah, discovering like villages and I don't know, mapping them, naming them. I name all the villages. There's High Biting and the Burr and Drywind, I think I called it the other one. Drywind.
So how are you coming up with the random names then?
Oh, well, I have to stand around in the town for a few minutes and sort of look and see what's around them. I just found one actually this time, which is, it has two ravines that sort of point at it. So I was thinking there has to be a name in there, but I haven't thought of the name yet.
Two Gulch.
Two Gulch? Yeah, that sounds good.
There you go.
It's nice and, to the point. That's the sort of thing I do.
Or mind you can always go over to the Seventh Sanctum website. They got random name generators for a lot of stuff. So you could just find a nice random town, generator and just start clicking on that.
Okay, well that's good too. Although, I like.
Doesn't have the same amount of personality.
Yeah, like what you actually find there. And like I named one. It was near a snow area and it had a library, so I called it Snowy Library. So that's the sort of complication that goes into my brain thinking.
Well, on the other hand, you can have other things work its way around. I remember a random tavern generator I had from the book of ever-changing names. And I don't know if I had things set too tight, but the one name kept repeating itself whenever I randomly generated the names, and it kept coming up Weird Vault. Weird Vault. Sometimes like 2-3 times in a row. And so now, like, in my mind, to this day, I still remember, it's like, that would be, like, a really interesting name for like, something, like, I don't think I'd use it for a tavern, but I definitely use it as a name for, like, a hidden sanctuary, of books.
Yeah, for sure. And now, would it be Weird Vault or The Weird Vault?
I think I just go with Weird Vault.
Weird Vault.
Making it The Weird Vault seems like it's like, oh, it's a vault, and it's the weird one. But if it's just Weird Vault... and even make it just one word, that really strikes, imagination. Like, what's going on in Weird Vault?
It sounds like a weird guy, like, Weird Vault. Weird Vault, I am very weird. My name is Vault.
Well, that's the thing, too. You can play that on, too. Everyone there is named Vaulter.
Weird Vaulter. I have books for you.
Yeah. And here's the thing, is there's another name. It only appeared once, but it really struck me as like a nice tavern name for dwarves. It was Blastinword.
Blastinword.
Yes, and it just occurred to me, it's like, yeah, if you ever do include something like dynamite in a game, like in a scenario or a setting, then dwarves would likely be using it for the construction, of more of their mines, because, you use blasting caps and all that.
Yep.
And so I could see that as being the name for where the dwarven miners go at the end of a hard day of blowing rock up into bits and pieces. They go to the blasting word.
Yeah, blasting word, like W-O-R-D, or ward?
O-R-D is in the word you use to
word.
signify that it's time for blasting.
Blasting word.
Yeah, except it was blasting. So it's like, so it sounded like really, like a blue collar. It's the blasting word.
So, like, instead of a safe word, that's what dwarves have. Instead of a safe word,
it's
like,
the opposite of a safe word. It's the blasting word.
The blasting word is cucumber.
Or maybe it could even be what the dwarves use in place of, like, swearing. You have curse words. They have blasting words.
It'd be cool if it was, like, magical and just, like, caused a little explosion, too.
Well, that's the thing is it's the replacement of, instead of actually dropping an F-bomb, it'd be like calling a bar the F-bomb. So I'm just going to drop by the F-bomb, have myself a few drinks, and head on home.
Oh, I just like the thought of the dwarves. Okay, cucumber.
I can see that for them, yeah.
Potato.
No, for them it'd have to be something like damn dirty elves.
Oh,
and then they feel better
real
about it.
Actually, like fargin nergin. Whoops.
Hey, those dwarven words have power, man. That's why you keep seeing the dwarves with their runic alphabet of magical sigils on their weapons.
Yeah.
Their words are magic.
I'd
they
like
have
to see,
blasting words.
Can you imagine a D&D campaign if, like, you had an update DM or something, or maybe he was DMing for kids or whatever. He's like, okay, we got to nip this swear thing in the bud, so every time someone swears at the table, a fire starts or something.
1d4 fireball just pops in right at the
location. You take
location.
damage for swearing. Not that, of course, at my table, I'm like, swear away. The more colorful, the better. So I should
to a point, I mean... on the one hand, if you play like a person that specializes in curses and all that, it could work definitely for their style.
Oh, yeah.
I remember back in Diablo 2, I had a necromancer that specialized in curses. I was testing it out, and the random name generator worked very well for me because the name came up as Feckov. Feckov.
Oh, yeah.
And so something like that where his name can be interpreted as a swear works very nicely. The personality for him bloomed as soon as I saw it. He works with curses, and his name is Feckov. Oh, yes. It all just comes together at once. Like an explosion in reverse, all the pieces come in together.
But it's like the character or the player with it says on my character sheet I have unholy curse, so I'm just going to go ahead and say beep, and I'll just beep.
Well, here's the thing. You could have, like, I know the Book of Vile Darkness had the feat that allows you to use, like, the black language. Ooh. That would cause things, like, literally you could whisper horrible words of the black speak language that would degrade things around it. It would literally cause a damage and ignore hardness.
That.
Yeah.
Cool.
You could effectively mimic that use of the thing and make that its own feat, true cursing, where you just scream these curses that go beyond the regular stuff until the things you're yelling at literally break from your intense rage and swears.
That's cool.
See, and it's basically just a carbon copy of something that pre-exists, just a different flavor spin.
Yeah, that's cool. One other simulation I've been running is I've been playing Plants vs. Zombies. I tried to get the
original?
No, I tried to get the newer version.
Only on the iProducts right now.
Yeah, I haven't been able to download it or figure it. I suppose.
It's coming to Android soon, but they worked it a different way. Originally, it was like the first one came out for everything, everywhere, and everyone had fun. And then they ported it to the mobile stuff.
Okay.
The second one they focused on the deal because thank you Electronic Arts. It made for better money revenue initially for them.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it sucks for me because I don't get to play the game, but...
It sucks for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that are unhappy about it. They like the first game, but they're not playing the second.
Yeah, I guess so. But, I mean, that's the thing is I couldn't get the second one, so I went ahead and downloaded the first one, and I've been playing that, and I haven't got through that yet. So I'm, like, enjoying
It's a fun game, though?
Yeah, it's fun. It's no Minecraft, but actually it's a different... It scratches a different itch than Minecraft, which I guess that's what you discover if you play a lot of video games, is that they're not interchangeable.
No.
Yes.
Like, I remember, my wife getting it a couple of years ago, and we just dug deep into that, and she was finding achievements. I had no clue how she was getting it, and we're working back and forth, trying out different tactics. Like, okay, what do we do against the zombonis when the zombies come in on their like, does the actual flaming stump to make the pea shooters go flaming? Does that work better against them? How does this operate?
Should fire versus ice.
Yeah. And so we're testing out different tactics and having a lot of fun that way. And I gotta say, for those of you out there who are looking for a significant other, having someone who does like the games that you like and has fun testing out stuff like that when you like testing it out, and just both trying different things and having fun together, that's a magical experience.
Words of wisdom from Brian.
I mean,
find someone who you share common interests with.
Well, that's the thing is normally we don't have necessarily a whole lot in common. I don't watch a lot of her shows. She doesn't watch a lot of my shows. Our hobbies are different, but we complement each other. It's like a yin and yang.
Yeah, that's good.
Together we are whole.
And then in certain rare areas,
instances, it's like the center point on each side that's the other color, where it's like, all of a sudden, like everything aligns up, and it's like, she likes this game, I like this game. Let's have fun doing this different ways. Yay!
Yeah, and you both happen to be pretty big fans of the kid that you have together, which is a good thing.
Oh yeah. We do have some different tactics for how we play.
Okay.
I prefer a bit more of a hands-off watch her and then let her explore on her own. My wife has a bit more, interact directly with her.
Oh, I see.
But we do switch it up to make sure she's getting all sorts of learning styles in there.
Oh, good. Yes, cover all your bases. Speaking of that, baseball. No.
Forget that, man. I saw some good hockey the other day, and that's another one, too. It turns out we both like watching hockey every once in a while.
Oh, that's good.
I'm not normally big on the sports stuff.
Yeah.
She's not normally big on the sports stuff, but you put hockey on when we're both in the same room, and we'll sit down, we'll watch that. And like yesterday, we were watching Toronto versus Vancouver, and it's like, Vancouver is just smashing them. It's like 2-0, and then 3-0. There's a goal, and we're both got up, yeah! And our daughter was like a little freaked out, like, what's going on all of a sudden? There's extra noise. And it's like, no, man, they scored. Go yes, yeah. And they did it again, and she was like, hey, they're happy parents now. And so she was like smiling and laughing at our reaction.
Great, yeah. Well, I guess you're still at the point where parents are pretty cool, so you got a few years to that.
So that's the thing is find it doesn't have to be everything together, but find that one thing that you can enjoy together. It makes for a nice little addition to your relationship.
There we go, relationship advice from the Relationship Podcast.
Hey, I got a successful marriage. I can give relationship advice. At least some of it. I'm not going to give all my secrets.
Okay, well, what are you at, 2 years? Or?
I think I'm going to come up on 4 years come April.
Like of being, together?
Well, being married.
Okay.
And then there's a few more years to add together.
Okay. So I guess that counts. That's pretty good.
We got a good relationship. We got a good marriage. I mean, we got a wonderful kid out of the whole thing. It's beautiful. Man, 2 thumbs up. A++ would marry again.
Very good. Okay, well, I guess that we covered...
Actually, we'll plan on that, too, because it's her family's on the other side of the world, so it's actually cheaper for us to go to her family and have another wedding there than to have even 3 of her family members come over and see a wedding, here in Canada.
That's good. Yeah.
So, yes, I will marry again. So I'm willing to put, my money where my mouth is, so I'm not just boasting with this A++ would marry again.
Right, so what does the A++ give her?
Better
come with cash?
All the money I can afford. All she has to do is ask for it, and if I've got it, I'd give it.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good relationship right there.
She's not the kind of person to just squander money and all that sort of thing, so I know she'd spend it wisely. Or at least, on something else I'd approve of, like another copy of Plants vs. Zombies.
Okay, well, no, that's good. So we should move to the even more your more recent past, as in the last week, and see if you've been running any cool simulations.
I've been doing all sorts of stuff this week.
Okay.
I've watched 3 movies. I did modding for Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah. And
I did a whole lot of reading on the Warhammer 40,000 universe. I was all over the place in fiction this week.
So what did you learn?
One, in Dwarf Fortress, there's some very interesting interactions you can do for syndromes that give positive benefits onto an item. So you can have, like an article of clothing that will boost strength or speed or something like that if you know how to do it just right in the game. I still have a lot of learning to do on that, but now that I know of its existence, there's a lot of fun potential.
Well, so it's like D&D, like your belt of giant strength? And that
something like that. There are certain limits, like a dwarf with, the stat range from a creature is 0 to 5,000. So a dwarf with 5,000 strength is still nowhere near as strong as, say, a bronze colossus.
Okay.
Mostly because a bronze colossus is about a quarter the size of the Statue of Liberty. So even a very weak bronze colossus has still got enough, physical mass to really put the oomph there.
So it's something like it adds the mass to the strength or something?
Yeah, it's a strength mass multiplier, and that determines the whole thing. But I'm learning some very interesting potentials.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I figured on Halloween night, it's like, you know what? A lot of the players in the game who do modding could be seen as being like mad scientists. But there's not enough mad scientist stuff in the game itself. So I came up with some mad science-y weapons, some mad science-y armor. And I just quickly cobbled it together out of pre-existing code and put it on there. And I'm planning to put up some more stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see how much I can build for something that truly looks great.
So you can make it into like almost a package, sort of.
Yeah. Right now I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Just here's a few files, here's what you save them as, and just put them in. I don't want to do that much for modding into like you have to edit this file or replace this file with that one.
Right, yeah, of course.
I like to keep my mods simple. Something that a basic modder would be able to look at, understand, and gain a little bit more knowledge. That's the kind of guy I am.
I see, yeah.
That and a lot of the mods, it's like, oh, you have to re-download the whole thing, and you're like, oh, but I really like these little things I got from over here, and it's like, oh, this one adds fire, and then I got to start compiling all together and seeing what they changed here and there. It's like really complex. I prefer making a modular system.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
And judging by the way they seem to be working with D&D Next, modular is a good way to go. It has a lot of proponents.
Okay, yeah, it's a good thing to shoot for, yeah.
So I had a lot of fun in that. The Warhammer 40,000 universe I actually found interesting because I was reading up primarily on the Primarchs of the various Marines, the Space Marines, and they had like the 9, guys that stayed loyal, the 9 traitors, and then the 2 people that were never spoken of. And one apparently traitor, one apparently loyal, but no one ever speaks of them. They've been completely erased from the official records.
I see.
And that one is intriguing, and there's little hints and pieces, so I was able to read up as to what they referenced. And yeah, apparently there's a good reason no one ever speaks of them, even for those who know it, but they're not saying anything. The official reason is in the game that...
Spoiler alert.
Well, no, it's actually a meta reason.
Okay.
It's not part of the thing at all.
Okay.
It's that if you want to create like your own Marine Legion or Chaos Marine, Space Marine Legion, that doesn't have an affiliation with any of the known 9 groups for either side, you can just say, oh, it's from the 10th one. They're just a surviving chapter that, from the whole bit, they didn't get erased, or, subsumed into another group. It's a very nice reason. I understand it. That said, it's so tantalizing. Like, ooh, what happened? Don't think Games Workshop will ever be able to come up with an answer that truly satisfies the entire base.
Okay. Well, I think we mentioned though before about secrets that the players can sort of fill in and never filling them in.
Yeah, never officially.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about it myself, it's like, ooh, why? What would be so bad that the Emperor of Mankind himself, the immortal leader, this is his spiritual children. He worked so hard to genetically create in a lab, and spiritually imbue with greatness such as himself. Why would he erase them from record? Because 9 of these groups are, traitor legions. These people betrayed themselves, they betrayed their emperor, they betrayed all of humanity. And they're not expunged from the official records.
Okay.
Possibly because they're still a threat, but they're still there, and there's all over in the history. They're still there. So what did this one other traitor guy do? What did these other 2 guys do here that really made them so bad they had to get an official expunged record?
Well, just shooting from the hip here, but they would probably the reason why he would expunge them is because they were the only ones with a good reason to rebel or whatever, sort of. Or maybe they started it all.
Well, that's the thing is, in the history of it was they were created in a lab to be the perfect, children, and then the forces of chaos stole them away and put them, spread them throughout the Milky Way galaxy, and they were later found.
Yeah.
And so this whole bit about lost. There's some nice like epic stuff you can see in there, but humanity is not the only race within the whole thing. So conceivably, one or two of these might have been found by what they call the Xenos, an alien species. So what happens if this Primarch who is supposed to herald the greatness of mankind and their time of ascendancy within the Milky Way galaxy is very, very loyal to an alien species and sees that as their true parental species, that's where their obligations lie. So that's just my theory thrown out. Okay. What if it turns out they were not loyal to humanity? Such a thing could be very well be punished by saying, kill the entire race and no one ever speaks of this kid again. And trust me, there's usually a good reason for hating the alien races in this thing. There are very few benevolent alien races. Most of them are like the alien predator, races you see in the Aliens and Predator movie. They're very violent and they're not going to help humanity at all. So, yeah, if you think about like planetary genocide as being a horribly bad thing, there's probably a decent reason for it. Within the context of the game, at least. So I had some fun reading up on that.
Yep.
But the movies I watched,
okay, go ahead.
Two of them stand out because one made me rethink the other. Just before Halloween, I got a chance to see the Monster High 13 Wishes movie, which I wanted to see because I'd been on the fence on this whole Monster High thing.
Okay.
On the one hand, it's like, oh, hey, something different other than let's just, dress up like a princess or a ballerina. So it's like, oh, hey,
dress up as something else instead.
Well, that's the thing is Barbie's been doing like the dream house. She's been doing the everything's in pink. Oh, now I'm a doctor. Now I'm a nurse. Now, I'm doing all this stuff. At least with the Monster High stuff, they're working on like, okay, no, we're just like high schoolers with incredible fashion.
So they've never done a zombie Barbie?
I don't think so.
Or not like officially, I guess. I mean,
not officially, yes. I don't think so.
But somebody's played zombie Barbie. I'm sure lots.
But Barbie has certain standards, and these ones that look at least like well, yeah. They've got a model for what Barbie is and what Barbie isn't. There's never going to be like like back alley crack Barbie.
Okay, is there back alley crack Monster High people?
I don't know what sort of drugs they might do, if at all. It might just be medicinal to keep them alive. Yeah. There's like a Frankenstein one, so I'm imagining there's some probably formaldehyde in their diet, if not, as like a medicine for them,
Well, is Frankenstein made of like actually dead, or isn't he alive again?
He was reanimated, but there wasn't a lot of preservative put in the original Frankenstein because they didn't know too much about that sort of thing at the time. They thought that you could just bring a body back to life and rot. What rot? It doesn't look rotten, so it can't be rotten.
Well, it wouldn't be rotten if the corpses are fresh. Then.
Oh, but that's the thing. It takes time to stitch the body, and there wasn't even anything about stitching, healing nerves together, putting the muscles together. It was just like, oh, there's a line here because they chopped the arm off. Let's just sew up the line around the skin. It'll be fine, right? Yeah.
Well, and shock it with electricity. That'll be something.
Yeah. But well, there's some deep reasons for that. So the Monster High one, though, I was looking at it like, oh, on the one hand, it was clearly designed to sell a product, so not too high opinion. On the other hand, it's something different. I'm always a fan of at least trying something different.
Yep.
So I was like, well, which way do I eventually, go on this sort of thing? I'll give the movie a chance. In the end, the movie really didn't do too much for me. I liked some parts, didn't like some other parts. The characters weren't exactly deep or anything.
Yeah.
They didn't really seem monstrous either to me. I was looking at it and seeing them as they go out in the back of the thing, and it's like during lunch break and all the students in the background are doing their things. It's like, they don't really look monstrous. It's more like mutants. Like if you couldn't get the license to the whole X-Men franchise, but you still want to do a school of like people with powers, this is probably the easiest way to make sure it happens. And so I was thinking, it's not bad. It has its own parts. There's some nice things about saltwater monsters versus freshwater monsters, and class as a way to show classism.
Okay.
Which I thought was very nicely done, but that was like a side story in the background.
Okay.
It was, just tangential. If there's another movie based on that, maybe I'll upgrade how much I like, if they actually cover some serious topics in addition to trying to sell a product.
So, what was the main conflict in the movie?
Evil genie corrupting the heart and mind of a person to gain power, and what it's like to have versus real friends versus fake friends.
So it's the monsters versus evil. Okay, so the monsters are kind of good guys.
At least they're supporting the younger friend of the younger sister of one of their friends, sort of thing. So it's
but it's about friendship and stuff. Yeah, that's typical.
It's not bad, I covered all the bases for what you should probably have in a movie for something appealing to kids.
Blah blah blah.
But so I was thinking, it's like, well, I didn't think too much of it. I guess it's an okay product. It didn't really increase, my view in my eyes. And they weren't really monsters, so I don't think it's a good title. So, just put it in the pile.
Okay, yeah.
But then later on, as in just the other night, I got a chance to watch the original classic movie, 1931 Frankenstein. And I was thinking about it, and it starts off with a guy, walking on, not part of the actual thing itself.
But a real monster movie, right?
So I think it's a classic of the monster movie franchise. This is Frankenstein. They released it into theaters 3 times because people keep wanting to see it.
Yeah.
And it starts off with a guy walking in, on a stage, and he says, this is a fairly scary movie. Be careful if you have heart conditions or are pregnant. We do warn you. Just make sure. This is a scary movie. And then I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, it's not a bad movie. Very well done. I quite like how it goes.
Yeah.
But it's not really scary.
Okay.
I have a hard time imagining how people were scared by the whole thing. I mean, it's not like he really pops out of, like the background. Frankenstein bursts through the wall and starts strangling him. No, there's no pop-out scares. It's much more of a psychological thing,
Well, there's dead bodies, right?
In the beginning, and then later on there's a dead girl. And the death of a young girl at the hands of somebody who is not fully cognizant of his actions.
Yeah.
That, you can see, is the deeper part of the whole thing. I don't know if they were trying for that or if I was just reading too much into it.
Okay.
But it occurred to me throughout the movie, it's like, well, it's a good, movie, but I'm not really scared about it. But apparently it's a classic of the monster movies, right? It's the Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
And so it occurred to me as I'm watching it, wait a minute, if I wanted to be scared through it, it would be a horror movie. If you're watching a horror movie, you should be scared. A monster movie just has this monstrous, abomination against nature.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to actually scare you. It just needs to tell a proper tale. And so then it suddenly occurred to me, watching the Monster High movie, I wasn't supposed to be scared. They weren't supposed to be eating people. Like the zombie girl wasn't supposed to be actually eating the flesh of another human being. It wasn't supposed to be scary that way.
Yeah.
They're just supposed to be very different sort of things, not the standard human type person, and they're supposed to tell a story. And so all of a sudden the movie became so much better for me once I realized, yeah, they're monsters, and they technically meet the monster classification. They scared me every bit as much as Frankenstein scared me. Yeah. So, hey, it's a better movie now because I remember looking at it and saying, horror movies scare you. Monster movies just tell you a story that happens to involve a creature that isn't human but is somewhere on par. It's para-human, I suppose.
Well, Frankenstein, the movie, is sort of, and the novel which preceded it, is sort of prototypical of the movie which just depicts a monster in its sort of human context, because it's like, oh, he's misunderstood and that sort of thing. So it's like the monster.
And how much can you really blame on him when they used an abnormal brain? Like he started out like. Exactly. So I mean, if you really want to sit down and just really zone out and think about it for a while, you could think about the consequences of the actions of a person. Is somebody truly criminally responsible for their actions if they have a mental abnormality? And at what end does that stop? And what point do they have to take full responsibility for their actions? Where does this end? And you could just sit down. You probably have to talk to a lot of criminologists as to where the whole things are, because they would definitely know more than you or me about this.
Well, in the courts and stuff, they have specific punishment. It's if someone's dangerous to society, you don't want them going free or whatever. If they have a mental abnormality. Then the point of law.
They do need a proper caretaker for them.
Just to keep them from hurting anybody else, sort of deal. And then, if they are cognizant enough to take responsibility, I did that because X, X, Y, and I'm going to do it again, or maybe you won't do it.
More
again.
Like a Hannibal Lecter type, I know I did something wrong, but I'm still going to do it because that's what I like to do.
Yeah,
I will justify it within my own mindset.
Well, no, because Hannibal Lecter, he's almost more on the monster side of things, on the incomprehensible side of things. I'm picturing
But at least he was able to explain to you why he did it. He, in his own mind, knew what he was doing was seen as wrong by society, but he still went through with it because he had his reasons. So that way, she is clearly supposed to be, like criminally responsible, whereas someone like Frankenstein didn't know how to speak. He was technically only a few days old, and he was being really tortured by the way, his name wasn't Igor in the first one, it was like Fritz.
Well, okay, yeah.
So, the whole Igor thing, and the whole name and
the
stuff.
Assistant.
Yeah. The whole thing that we know of as like Igor and, Victor von Frankenstein actually comes in at the later stuff. He was, different names originally. So, little factoid out there for you. But, but yeah, so there's some...
Win a game of Trivial Pursuit somehow with that.
Well, that's the thing. That could get you a point in Trivial Pursuit. Okay. What was the name of the the doctor's henchman in the original 1931 production of Frankenstein? Fritz. But there's some deep things you can think about in this whole thing. But it's not scary. Not this like, I'm shocked. I'm not, not really scared. I mean,
they didn't have, I would think the sort of the model for Frankenstein would be to have them sort of be scary at the beginning and sort of teach you a lesson about what monsters really are and what humans are, what it means to be human by, you're scared of him at first and then through the movie, like, oh, well, this happened to him and that's why,
Well, the thing is, he presents himself as like a beast at first, but you do start to realize, it's not just him. And there are extenuating circumstances, and you do sit down and start thinking, like, was he really a monster? And come out to the conclusion, maybe. Yeah, depends where you sit. Personally.
By the end of the movie, you're not scared of him, right?
Well, I was never really scared of him. He didn't he woke up and then he was like snapping necks and he was throwing things around.
Well, if you're not scared by that, I think problem might be in you.
Well, here's the thing: it wasn't you kind of saw it coming. Like, okay, yeah, the knockout that they hit him with, it's not lasting, and he's writing in his journal, I have to increase the dosage and the frequency. He keeps waking up from this whole thing, and you see his eyes fluttering before the guy's about to start doing some work on him. Okay. You kind of know what's going to happen, and so there's a suspense in there, but I wouldn't say it was something that frightened me the same way that an alien bursting out of the catacombs. Oh my God, they're coming out of the walls! They're coming out of the walls! That's a lot more horrifying for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So in the end this week I learned, a lesson about horror movies versus monster movies. And so now I may have to rethink a lot of the movies I've seen as to whether or not it should have been scary.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good thought to come away with.
And and it actually worked out very nice for me because now I think more higher of that the 13 Wishes movie. I think it's better. I think the entire product's a little bit more better now because I think they're not really supposed to be scary. They're just supposed to be, different, and that's what they're supposed to be. Maybe instead of, them being monsters, what they're really supposed to show is like ethnicities. But you can't just show ethnicities because then it becomes really, really personal. So once again, within like a lot of sci-fi, you show it by way of a fantastic, other thing, like Star Trek with their, he's black on white side, white on the other, versus white on one side, black on the other. That was clearly something that shows, like being racist.
Well, I
black
think
versus
that
white.
Was very
that was
overt.
Pretty blatant.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they were able to get away with the whole thing, showing what it's like to be a horrible racist type person, when they wouldn't normally have been able to put that thing on the air. Why? Because they're aliens, space aliens with the colors on different sides. And so maybe in that case, you can see the whole monster thing for the Monster High as being ethnic. Yeah, you're different. That's the way you are. There's nothing wrong with that.
Or ethnic, or maybe a different sexuality, or maybe a different...
all sorts of, different in any which way you want to start perceiving it. And so in that case, it's suddenly, like, I might want to look more into this. Like, how exactly do they portray this sort of thing? I might want, maybe someone's actually working on layers on this, and they're secretly trying to get people to learn, even when they don't know they're being, it happens. Everyone has an agenda. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's not. Now I might want to look more into this. I've got a bit of a higher opinion on it.
I would be careful, though, not to look too deep, not to identify directly with this monster equals this color, this other monster equals this.
No, but they're clearly trying to show something because, as I mentioned before, that side plot that they had about the freshwater, aquatic monsters versus the saltwater aquatic monsters was clearly shown as like being like a classist group. Oh, he won't bring her home to meet the parents because she's saltwater.
Well, that's
And
kinda,
that was very blatantly played out. So now that
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, the whole thing is like maybe they are doing something maybe a little subversive, but ultimately, you know, very progressive in design.
Subversive and progressive.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot this week, and I might have to spend some time sitting down and just thinking about the whole thing. Maybe I need to watch the movie again with a critical eye for it. Now that I've seen like the outline, it means this. Now watch it again, and what does it shape up to be this way? Who knows? Maybe they actually came up with something really deep that a lot of people just don't see at first glance. I don't know. I'll have to check it out again. If it comes on TV. Basic cable TV.
Okay.
I'm not going to spend money on the whole thing. I mean, I got a limited budget. I got a kid. She's not going to watch this thing for another 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we'll have DVD players in 10 years. So,
Right.
if it's on free TV, I'll watch it. Check it out again and think really critically as I watch it this time.
Okay. Very good.
So, yeah, but that's where I learned a lot this week. I did a lot this week.
Did a lot.
Yeah.
That's very good to hear. Okay. Cool. Next thing that we are on the agenda for.
A conspiracy idea this week.
Okay, we have a conspiracy.
Okay. So, those of you who follow Canadian news.
I think most people, it's funny, most people are, like, not Canadian news, but this story sort of...
It's made headlines around the world about allegations of Toronto Mayor Rob Ford being caught on tape smoking crack cocaine.
Yeah, so we're going to make a conspiracy about this.
Okay, so apparently it has come out. The cops did a drug bust a little ways back. They found a computer. They looked at the erased files, because you can find erased files so long as you don't like really scramble up the ones and zeros. It's still there.
Yeah,
and they found the video. Or the video that seems to be the video that they couldn't find earlier. That a lot of people said, oh, it doesn't exist. It was just slander. Okay. So yeah, it turns out it came out. It's in the cops' hands right now, and it may wind up going to court. If they, or at least to the forensics to see if they can verify that it is the mayor. It's still allegedly doing crack cocaine.
So the mayor was smoking some kind of drug, and
it may not have been him. Maybe someone that just happens to look a lot like him.
Be that. Yeah.
I don't know how good quality it is. Like, I don't know, is it HD? Is it just grainy, like 620 sort of, resolution?
Yeah.
How good is the bit rate going on there? I haven't been told. I haven't seen.
Do you remember the Mythbusters episode where they dressed up as each other?
Yes. Yes.
I wonder if you can do that in a...
Well, that's the thing. If you get the low enough resolution, because it was apparently filmed on like a camera phone, you might be able to get away with the whole thing. But no, I don't care for the purposes of this story whether or not he was smoking crack or he wasn't. What you can do, though, is see this story from two very different perspectives. A lot of them are calling it the left side versus the right side, but you know what? Forget that noise. This is municipal politics. You can have the pro-Ford people and the anti-Ford people.
Okay.
Okay, so the anti-Ford people say, this is, the mayor of Toronto smoking crack cocaine. He's a horrible person. He's got ties to, drug people. One of the people that was, on the video with him is now dead under not exactly fully known circumstances. Did he orchestrate this? What is his connection? Why has he got so many connections to, the drug industry? Why was his, I think he had a driver that was, busted for dealing drugs? Mm-hmm. Why is this connection, going on here? And they're really out to get him. And you got the pro-Ford side. And they're saying, here's a man trying to, make the biggest, city in Canada work. He's doing a darn adequate job at it. And the books truly aren't budgeted, balanced properly. But he's doing at least as good as his predecessors were.
Sure.
In that he hasn't set the place on fire yet.
He hasn't. Okay, apparently.
Well, that's the thing is there's not really high expectations for Mayor of Toronto. They haven't had the best series of mayors.
Okay.
So anytime he's not just doing horrible, it's doing good enough for them. So it's like he's at least doing a decent job. He's trying to get this job done, and then you got these people slandering him. They won't let him rest. They will always bring him up on something, one thing after another.
Yeah,
they want him out, and they're just like rabid dogs clawing at him, and he's just trying to get an honest day's work done.
So it's like a conspiracy to get rid of.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
On the other hand, think of it this way. Picture the one in your head. Picture the anti-Ford side. Imagine this is true. Imagine everything that they're saying about him, all the horrible things. He is connected. He's got all this. He's doing all sorts of nasty things. And keep that in your head. And then picture the pro Ford side. He's an honest man trying to do a good day's work, and all these people keep hounding him constantly, daily. They won't let him have any peace, and they won't even say any of the good things he's doing on a daily basis. He supports his teams. He goes out and he helps out, the young youth athletics.
Yeah.
And he's trying to be a good, upstanding citizen, and these people just keep hounding him. They hate him. Why? Now keep that in your head. Now try and think of both sides simultaneously. Just try it for a second there. Just try and get both of those completely different perspectives in your head at the same time.
Okay, got it.
There. And now you have a stereoscopic vision of a situation in your mind. You're seeing both sides of an argument at the same time.
Okay.
And there's your conspiracy thought at the time. Both sides might just be right. Maybe he is a good person trying to do this, but he has a drug habit. It's pretty harsh. He does what he can when he's completely sober, but he slips. I don't know exactly where the truth lies, but if you look at both sides together, it's like looking at something with two eyes. Each side, one eye. Together, you get more depth of perception.
Really? Because I honestly don't. Well, that's a fun way to look at it, for sure.
And I think it's a good mental training exercise for a good conspiracy idea. It's getting these two almost irreconcilable different views together at the same time and keeping it in your head. And if you can get both sides together and you can keep it on there, it gets much more rich than just reading a story in the CBC News.
Definitely entertaining, like looking into a funhouse mirror. I definitely agree with that. Or looking through like a double pane of glass, which has two reflections in it that sort of combine into one, like two different people.
Or I suppose you could liken it to looking at those 3D images, like the magic eye things where you squint. If you get it just right, a boat pops out.
Except I don't think you'll ever get a boat from this. I think you'll get like just weird shapes that don't really make sense.
Well, that's the thing, is if you get it just right and you're able to hold it long enough, you might be able to get a proper image of what comes out of the whole thing. And it just becomes much more rich than just reading a standard story from the CBC News and then seeing a bunch of different people commenting back and forth.
Although I will say about those magic eye things, it's more fun, like, say you're supposed to see a sailboat. It's more fun if you can try and find, like, weird things.
Yeah,
have you
the
ever
noise
tried to
that
move
comes
your eyes
in.
like the opposite way of what you're supposed to and see what you see? Because sometimes that works and you see like trippy stuff, like I don't know, aliens or like monsters.
Well, that's the thing. It's just noise that comes together.
Yeah.
That's like
and then your brain turns it into a pattern, and then there you have conspiracy theories.
Well, it's like watching like when you're showering and you're looking at your patterned cloth on the thing to make sure the water doesn't spill out, and you got your shower curtain there, and you're looking at it, and you're looking at the trees on the thing because maybe you got trees there, and you look and say, is that a face in those trees? And then just for a second you see a face, and then you look at it again, and it just blurs out. No, it was kind of like a face, but just for a second pops out at you.
Well, I have St. Paul in my in the wall of my bedroom.
Oh, does he pop out at you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's like that then.
And he talks to me. No, he doesn't. No, I saw a picture.
He talks to me, but it's all in Latin, and he's screaming at me, so I don't know what it says, and I just feel so pressured I can't understand him.
Greek, actually. He talks to me in Greek.
Well, he's screaming at me in Latin, so I don't know.
It's Greek because I know a couple words.
It's all Greek to you. But no, so it's just a nice mental exercise for you. If you're going to write a good conspiracy theory, you're going to have two differing views. The one that people will see and what's really happening.
Yeah.
But what's really happening isn't necessarily the other view that the opposing side is going to get. What's really happening is actually the combination of both sides. Nobody has the true story. Both people have a side of it that they hold on to and ignore the rest. And it's only when you can fit everything together in your head and keep them both together as one that it all comes together in your proverbial 3D image in your own head of the situation.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way, but okay. But, I mean, you get something cool out of it anyways.
Yeah. Well, you get a deeper story than just reading, okay, here's the one side, and it's... Because let's face it, not all media sources report completely unbiased. Almost everybody has a side they have to choose when telling the story.
Yeah.
It's really hard to report just the facts and make it something that somebody's going to want to read.
Well, what I'll say about the media is their bias is towards messing things up, basically. They
reporting something that a person is either going to want to read and share with their friends, because a lot of it's online, or just, like post a comment about or click on again to see if there's been an update later on.
Well, yeah.
That's the story they actually really want to sell you.
Yeah, there's headline grabbing stuff or like attention chasing and all that. But there's also they just get things wrong and they just...
It does happen. I mean, they do try.
Or they don't know and they can't add in...
There's known unknowns
details.
and there's unknown unknowns. And it's kind of hard to separate between the two. So by keeping these opposing views in your head when you're getting a story, you can start filtering out, like, okay, this doesn't mesh. That's an unknown. That's what's being incorrect here. Yeah. And then you can start correcting it, and then you get a much better story because you're able to fit all the pieces together.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I'll say about understanding this sort of story is, like, it helps to know a little bit about different drugs and stuff. And the thing about crack cocaine, like, I mean... It's a hell of a drug. It is addictive, but it's not, it's not on the top, it's not the top list of addictive drugs.
Especially here in Canada. We all know what that tends to be. And it's only mildly addictive at best.
Yeah, it's actually, according to something I read recently, so I guess take this with a grain of salt, but it's less addictive than the other kind of crack, or not crack, the other kind of cocaine that you snort or inject or whatever. Yeah. So the smoked kind is the less addictive kind. It's less addictive than other things like heroin and whatever else, meth and things like that. So it's not the worst drug he could be caught smoking.
Yeah, it's not bath salts or anything. It's not like he's taking bath salts.
And that's sort of what I bring to the whole picture of things, is that I don't even see this as a really, people are like, oh, how horrible that he smoked something. And it's like, well, okay, he smoked something.
Well, here's the thing, is there are some people saying it doesn't really matter what he did. He's associating very heavily with some criminals of a very disreputable sort. It doesn't matter if he was even smoking joints. As long as he's around these hardened criminals and writing like letters of recommendation for them, is he really somebody that you would want, like running one of the largest cities in North America?
No, I don't think I would want him as mayor, but the thing about the criminals and the horrible people that he associates with...
Killers, in this case, are convicted killers. So it's not like there's a huge, like, maybe they're just doing it to make ends meet. No, they've shot and killed people. Yeah, apparently.
They're bad guys. They're evil.
They're referencing them in and around. I haven't been able to find a direct name in quite some time being used. So
okay, well,
take that with a grain of salt.
If we can draw this out a little bit longer. So if he truly is like one of these evil guys, if he's one of them, like, say, like there's a sort of...
He doesn't necessarily need to be evil. He just needs to be close enough to them that it's not something you want in a mayor.
So if he's sort of the guy who's willing to look another way when somebody like offs, competition or whatever, sort of willing to go to the lengths of...
I'm dealing with an unrepentant killer. And
So
then I'm going to get high next to him and just have fun for a few hours.
So, assuming that he's that sort of person, what makes you think he's going to resign? Like, what makes you think, oh, well, he should resign, like, he should...
Some people are saying maybe not just resign, but step aside while this gets resolved to make sure that the dignity of the office does not get tarnished by the proceedings.
Yeah, but okay, that's the thing. Like, if he is that sort of person, then
he's not likely to do it.
Why would he step aside? But if he isn't that sort of person, wouldn't he, like, if he really was the honest guy, the guy who's doing the mayor's job and, like, answering phone calls or whatever he's doing as a mayor,
promoting light rail transit and subway systems and whatever.
I don't feel like if I was sort of wrongly accused of something and I knew I didn't do it, I'd be like, well, no, just you guys sort it out. I'll just keep doing my job.
I think I would have come forth to state that before 8 days after the reports about the video first came to light.
So in that case, you're saying he's probably the first type, which is
I'm
the guy
saying
who did it.
He needs a better press agent. Because if I was a guilty person, I would want to look innocent. So I would have a good press agent saying, no, you don't wait 8 days to come out and then make a statement that's using very present tense words about it.
That's interesting, though, because if he's innocent, then he's more likely to be that naive. But if he's guilty, then he should be thinking.
On the other hand, if he's the kind of person doing crack cocaine, he might not necessarily be the kind of person to make the proper plans.
He's not fully in control of his faculties.
So here's the thing, is you take all these various perspectives, like what kind of guy does this, what kind of thing, like the innocent person versus the guilty person and how they would interact, and you put these all together, and you start forming a profile as to which one's which, and then you look at Rob Ford, you see how he's acting, and that gives you better clues. He looks a little bit more like a well-rounded person as opposed to just who came out 8 days later, said using present tense words, I am not addicted to crack cocaine, I am not doing crack cocaine.
I do wonder about this underworld too. I mean, we tell stories about the criminal, gangs and stuff, and they fight, they kill each other when they're encroaching on territory and stuff like that. And I do wonder, because those like gangsters and stuff. I mean, Grand Theft Auto, they have families. They the criminals might be cold and hardened killers or whatever, but they also care about people. They have people they like and friends. And
very few people are completely villainous.
And probably a lot of those killers, probably like the majority, a few of them are probably psychopaths, but ignoring the psychopaths for now, a lot of them probably justify the things they have to do by saying, well, no, I'm killing a bad guy. When
like he was any better than me.
Well, even worse.
Technically, I saved $500,000 for the justice system of Ontario. You're welcome. You want to buy some crack?
I'd imagine most of the people, we're talking about a fairly small set, the Canadian criminals, which is not that a lot of them, but there are some.
Well, depending on what you listen to for the Montreal trials for corruption, it can be fairly widespread.
Yeah. Well, yeah, different kinds of...
But there's still a minority of the population, the criminal group.
And then sort of we're talking about a subset even of that, the kind that are actually do the dirty work of
the
murder.
Proactive corrupt people, not just I'll take a bribe if it's offered. No, these people go out and I'm going to make sure I'm going to give this guy money so he's going to listen to what I say. Well, the proactive corruptions.
And even you can sort of justify giving bribes because it's well, I didn't hurt anybody, I just gave a bribe to get business. Whereas there are people who are no, I paid money for this person to get killed or their legs broken or something like that. Which
some people are saying, how close does, Rob Ford have the connection to, one of these guys who was in the video who is now dead?
Well, yeah. So
did he try and silence people? What's going on there? Does he have friends in the police force? Is that why that during the whole drug bust, that operation that just happened to coincide when they were trying to sell and extort or whatever you want to say it for the video, was that connected? How what's the connection scheme? What's going on behind the scenes?
I will say what you hear from the killers or the people who hurt people, the people who actually hurt other people. What you hear from them most of the time, they don't say it was him or me, or they don't say, oh, it was just business. They'll say something like, he was a scumbag, he deserved to die. Something like that. Or he,
justification,
It's this eye for an eye chain of violence that perpetuates itself. But basically, it's
but never truly kills everybody, so it never winds itself down.
Yeah, it's sort of it's that cough that you sort of live with.
An interesting version of virulence within diseases. If the disease is too virulent and too lethal, it will kill all the hosts before it can spread to anyone else. So it has to be just virulent enough to kill people and be dangerous without making sure it kills all the hosts and is able to spread in time.
And then I guess there are a few of the criminals who say, no, I'm a bad guy and I shouldn't have, I killed somebody or did something bad that I shouldn't have done, but I had to because I had no money or someone was going to kill me or my family,
And that's actually something I would love to read for a true crimes book. Is a nice a group analysis of the different kinds of mentalities for why they did this. Justifications of crimes. I would love to read a nice big thick book on that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be learned that way.
And then somewhere in that mix, we have to somehow fit in Rob Ford and understand what sort of person he is. Is he the guy who just looks the other way? If so, he finds
what level is going on here with him?
Does he sort of? Because I imagine a lot of what happens in sort of that culture is they see each other as scumbags. It's like everybody in this business is a scumbag. They all, whatever. If they die, who cares? Sort of thing.
Wait, was that the politics or the crime?
I think. Well,
maybe a little of both.
It may be the case with Rob Ford that he would have been involved in the crime before he was involved in the politics. I think.
Oh.
I think that's likely, and I don't know if he would have profited from drug trade, but maybe. I mean, so that could have even funded part of his. But now I'm doing conspiracy theories.
That's the thing is the more you think about this, but you have to keep considering the opposite sides. It's almost like building a house of cards.
Yeah.
You can't build a house of cards without having more than one side to angle against.
Yeah, you want to check yourself. Well, the side that I just want to, I think you're getting at the same point is that, say, he may have done bad things or he may have been a good hard worker in some cases, but in that, like, at the center of it all, he's a guy. He's a dude. You know, he's
a flawed person like every one of us.
You know, and
how is he flawed? That's where it's always the interesting part.
Yeah,
no one reads a story about boring, perfect people. There's no story there. It's all in the flaws that the story comes out.
If he's buying or selling or using drugs, those are different things, but those are something that humans can do and not necessarily be evil or, you know.
They're just victims of their own addictive personality sort of thing.
Yeah, but I suppose, yeah, it's true that once you get to things like the leader of the city, you sort of don't want that or you don't want that element in secret, because I sort of, like, my sort of, you know, I think that they should make drugs, what's the word for it? Not legal, but
decriminalized?
Yeah, they should decriminalize drugs and get rid of some of, like, well, it's hard to get rid of the gangs once they're, yeah. Anyways, that's probably, I don't need to go further into that.
There are some of the things to be said about decriminalization as to how you can then view the person and whether or not they'll be more responsive to treatment if they see it as less of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that might be a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's like a workout exercise for you. Find a story with where the comment section is two very opposed sides, and then try and picture both sides together being right in your head, and see what comes up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's at least another angle to use to look at a story. Yeah. For sure.
The truth comes out somewhere in the middle, has always been said. So.
I wanted to also. So moving on.
Yes.
I wanted to also mention to all the listeners out there a couple of things. It is November, so it is the beginning of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. If you haven't already started a novel, your task for the month, should you choose to accept it, is to write a 50,000-word novel in 30 days. Since it's the third, you've wasted, well, by the time you listen to this, it will be the fourth.
You should at least be 4,000 words in, and that's still being slightly behind schedule.
Well, but no, you can catch up. It's not that hard, and if you have a little bit of time to devote today. That's just the thing about...
Now, it is proper novels, right? Because I have an idea, because I'm still making plans for last year's stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still working up. And so it occurs to me, I've hit a state of paralysis where I'm constantly preparing but never doing.
Yeah, well, that's what NaNoWriMo is supposed to do. It's supposed to get you actually in the...
So I'm thinking maybe I should just come up with a premise, you know, and then just write a bunch of short stories about the whole thing and just, you know, it's like, hey, shut up, Ryan, quit planning, and sit down and read, you know, and then once you got that in, write. And just write and write and write.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, if you don't like it, and forget that, delete it, and, you know, like make up the words later on for a story you do want to keep.
I don't see why. In fact, I don't see why a series of short stories just put in the same book can't be just considered a novel. So yes,
it's a novel of different views and different opinions. And we're going back to the previous topic that way.
But I don't think there's any rules as to how many characters a novel has, or whether you have to follow the same character for the entire novel. I guess it's sort of, but I mean, novels don't always.
No, it's just most people do tend to stick with a protagonist versus, you know, every chapter's got a new protagonist.
Yeah.
Although I do think there's some very nice ways you could create a story whereby the protagonist keeps shifting throughout. Because what the person sees and what the person thinks is not necessarily what the rest of the world views. Getting back to the previous one again. Yeah. So if you were really good at it, you could tell a wonderful story of these opposing views when it's really the same thing happening and everyone just hears it different.
I think I've seen books that attempt something like that.
I don't think anyone's come up with the master of it. There's no like thing. This is the archetype you should really follow. This guy really pinned it down, or gal pinned it down. So you know, if you have a hankering to fill out a void, it's either that or you combine NaNoWriMo with Movember and write about beards. So,
okay,
there are your options.
Yeah, did I have anything else to say about NaNoWriMo? Not really. I mean, just you can find out more about it at the NaNoWriMo website, which will be in the show notes here, or just Google it.
I'm sure they've got a Facebook page, so if you're finding us on Facebook, check them out too.
They
probably have it distinguished by province, I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, well, there's basically email lists, I think, whatever they used to be called,
mailing lists
that they used to have. Every sort of region has one, and I'm subscribed to several. I don't usually read them, but I do get the messages and I see them. So I'm subscribed to the Alaska one, I'm subscribed to the BC one and the Alberta one, and I think there's a Canada-wide one, though I don't see too much posting from it. Mostly people focus on the provinces, I think. So it's fun to read the Alaska one too, but even though I'm,
not in Alaska.
Not in Alaska, obviously.
Is it like spying? Like I'm secretly watching them?
Yeah. Although, Obama thinks I live in Alaska.
Oh. Well, I suppose that's good. I mean, you're throwing the NSA, a false lead. Ha. Take that, like they're listening to us right now. Bomb, 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 bomb. Okay, now they're paying attention.
Oh,
okay.
Great.
They can fix up the problem soon enough. Don't worry. They've got databases for this sort of thing.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, NaNoWriMo.
Yes.
Anyways, that's about enough.
And I do believe there's coming up within a few months. We have GotaCon. Yeah.
GotaCon.
As in, I gotta go to this convention.
I think is it a Pokemon convention? In
they have
Victoria,
Pokemon.
BC.
Yeah.
February, in early February. Well, there will be more details coming on this podcast, but we are planning on going and having a great time at this wonderful gaming
I'm planning
convention.
on getting my brothers down and having a good time with my brothers at the convention as well.
So February in Victoria, be there. Yeah,
the more the merrier.
Planning way ahead for this, but hopefully.
Hey, I mean, it seems like it was last weekend. I was thinking, 6 more months to GotaCon. Now it's like, whoa. We're down to 3? What happened to the last 3 months?
Yeah, so that's going to be at the Victoria Convention Center in downtown Victoria. Beautiful downtown Victoria.
Beautiful downtown Victoria with very little proper parking, so make sure you know the bus system well.
Oh, yeah.
Or just stay there the entire time. No, we're kidding. Don't stay there the entire time. Go back home, have a nap and a shower. Nobody likes the smelly person.
There are hotels downtown, so you can...
Well, I'm assuming somebody has a place to go.
Right, if you live in Victoria, that's even better. Yeah.
If you live in Victoria, don't rent a hotel. Save those spots for the people coming in.
Yeah, if you don't live in Victoria, come stay with... Well, I don't have a lot of space, but I was going to say come stay with me, but... Well, email me, thesimulationist@gmail.com if you really need a space to stay.
Failing that, it's close by to the Empress, and they have some very nice rooms. Expensive, but very nice.
Yeah, and you get tourists coming through and looking at it all the time.
They're not bad tourists most of the time. I mean, heck, I've been that tourist most of the time. I just really like the stuff they have on all the walls showing the history around there.
Okay, cool. So GotaCon in February. Yes. Be there.
Get ready, man. Start exercising your gaming muscles already. You don't want to throw like a gaming muscle and all of a sudden you can't chuck a die. And then where are you? You're stuck holding the die 20 and everyone's waiting for you. That's where you are. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal.
Okay, moving on.
Yes.
What else do we have to talk about?
I think we have a proper main topic this week.
The main topic.
Yes, the corruption of horror into other genres.
Oh, because last week we did when comedy intrudes on horror, where you're not supposed to laugh at in a horror movie.
Sometimes the death is funny. It just is. I don't know why. Sometimes you just see a person get, like brutally murdered in such a way that you just laugh. And I don't know why. It just is.
Sometimes
it's darkly funny. Like as we were saying, like if Edna Krabappel, if they write her out of the series by having her die the same way as Maud Flanders did, that's funny. Okay. And everyone I've told that to chuckles at it.
Well, that's last week's topic. So this week's topic we want to talk.
We're going to reverse it. Is when something scary creeps into the other genres.
So you're having fun, you're laughing.
No, we're not talking about like where horror mixes in, like Abbott and Costello meet The Mummy, where the horror is blended in with the comedy. We're talking about when horror just kind of comes out and it's like, whoa, this is supposed to be comedy. What happened? And then it goes right back to the comedy. It's just that one scene that really sticks out. Like, I don't think that was really as funny as you guys intended. That was kind of brutal and horrific. What was going on there?
Yeah, well...
you have an example?
My initial sort of what got me thinking along that line, sort of where I started, was sort of the movie Hook, which is when Peter Pan grows up and becomes Robin Williams.
But not the actual Robin Williams. He becomes, somebody played by Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I don't think Robin Williams has ever had an autobiography where he says he started out as Peter Pan.
Banning. They changed. He called himself Peter Banning.
Banning?
Banning?
I think it was Panning. Yeah.
Either way. So Peter Pan grows up and he goes and then he they have a scene with the pirates, and Captain Hook is like
Dustin
talking
Hoffman.
about Dustin Hoffman. He's talking about whatever, we're gonna have a war against Peter Pan or whatever.
The Lost Boys. Ha ha ha.
There's one moment, it's foggy in my brain, but there's one moment where like a pirate speaks up.
Says the wrong thing at the wrong
wrong
time.
thing.
Risks shattering the illusion of his son Jack.
Yeah, exactly, or something like that. Anyways, Captain Hook just pulls out a gun and blam, shoots him. Like, it's supposed to be, funny pirates. It's a kids movie, right? Or I guess it's a
all ages
movie.
Sort of thing. So
Yeah,
kids should be allowed to watch it.
Yeah. And then there's this moment, and because I remember watching it as a kid, and kids sort of respond to movies differently than adults do. As an adult, I'd be like, ha ha ha, yeah, pirates, whatever, they kill
Death
each other.
is cheap for pirates. Ha ha ha. He truly met the short end of the stick.
As a kid watching that movie, I can remember being like sort of disturbed in a way.
Wait, so he's dead now? Dead?
Like,
what?
Yeah, it's like the funny pirates just suddenly, oh well, I guess nobody cared about him either. They just laughed.
They just let him fall down on the ground dead. No one says, hey, that was completely uncalled for, Captain. They're like, maybe you ought to think twice before shooting another one of us. There's only so many of us adults here.
Yeah, and of course, in the movie, only one of the kids is actually killed. And
but it's played very deeply.
Spoilers.
Hey, no, the movie's been out long enough. I think spoilers can be dropped from this. We won't tell you which kid it is, by the way. So you can watch it, and you think, is this kid doomed to die, like, within the next 90 minutes? Was it him? What about this kid? Is it the cute little one? Who dies?
Yeah, and then in the movie, like, it treats it a lot more. It's not like, oh, ha, another kid dies. It's like, and
then the kid drops dead and things keep going on. No, it's a pivotal point.
It's like a dramatic, like, he's dying, I'm dying. And, well,
he's not like a red shirt death or anything like that. It's like, whoa, this one means something.
So
yeah, it's I suppose if you're very sensitive to death, you could really see it as being like the whole thing popping up.
I mean, that's not really horror, but that's sort of the thing is.
Well, that's the thing is if you do have like a particular sensitivity to that, it could be seen as very horrific, very like brutally violent, and that's an all ages thing, really. Whereas I remember the movie The Never-Ending Story. It's supposed to be like an action adventure sort of thing, a wonderful myth building story. And then you've got the whole bit where it's just the giant rock biter guy just standing there, sitting there staring at his hands.
Yeah.
Talking about I thought these were big, strong hands, and he's talking about how he loses all of his friends. He couldn't save any one of them. They're all dead now forever. I thought these were big, strong hands, and it's like very grim moment. I mean, it's supposed to be like an action sort of like yes, big mythic action, in the land of Fantasia. And it's like, whoa, dude, that was kind of, like sad and grim and deep. Like, what happened there? It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Not horror again per se, but then again, I mean, horror's always in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, it's character building, and the fact is that people bring experiences, like characters bring experiences to their character, and sort of that informs what we see.
It also shows just how bad of a threat it is, the nothing that's eating away at Fantasia.
Was that the Never-Ending Story or like the sequel?
It was the first one.
Okay.
The other one involved effectively amnesia, forgetting your childhood.
Okay.
And then the third one was about stupid stuff, but it had a very young Jack Black in it.
that
Everything
makes
else
it all better.
Makes it technically redeemable on some level. I've been told it's not that good.
Okay. You haven't seen that one? I think I may have, but I don't even
I was tempted to try and illegally find it and download it and watch it and then delete it and never say I actually had it on my computer at all, but I was just never even had the impetus to steal it. It by all standards, it was just such a B-rated movie, I just couldn't even illegally steal it.
I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Yeah.
It means something. Because like, if it's free and all you have to do is like click a few buttons, and like enter in a search term and find it, that should be that easy, right? If you're even a little interested, it should mean something. But if all the reviews are coming back saying it's just so bad that like why
it's
even
a terrible movie that Ryan won't even watch it.
And I've seen a lot of bad movies, so it's like this is something that by all accounts is like a movie that has, aside from Jack Black, like no really redeemable feature. Like the rock biter is reduced down to like on the level of Dinosaurs, the old TV series where he just comes in and he's talking to his wife and he's got a kid rock biter with him, and then he has to go and pick up, I don't know, whatever the rock equivalent of milk is, gravel? And he goes off on his roller, and he's singing this. He's singing "Born to Be Wild" as he's going down there, and it's just like, no, he's not as big. He's not it's just like his head's proportionally bigger than the rest of them, but it's just like he's like an animated creature. He's not like a giant moving mountain of depth.
Oh, okay.
He seems shallow, petty, and really designed just to try and get a butt in a seat. And technically not even a butt in a seat, because it was a direct-to-video sequel, if I remember correctly.
So you think people went to see that movie just because there was a rock guy in it?
I don't believe the executives knew why anybody watched any of the first two movies, and they just really needed to get this thing produced because it was their job.
That's so sad, because the never-ending story is about storytelling. It's the whole idea.
And they couldn't come up with a good enough story and enough deep, engaging characters. They shallowed them out to the point where nobody really cared anymore. That would make for a truly scary thing in Fantasia.
There's our number 4 right there.
The never-ending story 4, Flanderization of everybody. Harsh. Although I do believe you could probably write one heck of a good scathing satire if you got the right person to write it.
Anyway, so
I mean, you can look at this for if you do want something that's seen as scary by some people, Alice in Wonderland. Some people don't see the whimsy, the wonder, and the good wordplay in there, especially the ones that just watched like the animated one, because the Alice in Wonderland that you read is a lot different from the Alice in Wonderland that Disney put out.
Yeah, of course.
The wordplay doesn't work quite as well. I do believe they scrapped the whole thing about several small parts. It worked well on written paper, didn't really work well from a visual perspective.
I can see that, yeah. So
they added some stuff in there.
Is it supposed to be like, I don't know, comedy romp, or what is Alice in Wonderland? Is it children's coming-of-age story, I guess?
Well, that's the thing. It's not even really a coming-of-age. It's just kind of a really good, witty, word book.
Just a child having a dream and then sort of coming out of the dream, and I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure, Alice does technically grow as an individual, so I guess you could call it at least a coming of maturity, where you leave the full craziness of the youth mindset and start coming into a logic mindset and learning different ways to think and, slightly more convoluted ways to get to the answer. And why your perceptions were false to begin with, and you double think what you think you know.
Yeah.
So you could see it that way, but some people don't see it, especially when they just watch, because there's been a number of animated stuff put out over the years, where they don't see it as being, witty wordplay or, just weirdness going on. They see it as very, very chaotic and crazy. Mm-hmm. It would be like some people just saying it's like Alice's descent into madness, and you're watching it and laughing and having a good time as she's losing touch with all reality. And so some people do see Alice in Wonderland as an intensely scary movie because they can't see the whimsy in there.
I guess so, yeah. Well, do you remember, I don't know if you've encountered this before, but one of the reasons that is cited, I don't even know if this is true or not, but I'm just going to tell the story because it's cool, is that the writer, Lewis Carroll, I can't remember his real name, but anyways, he was a mathematician.
Yes. And
one of his motivations for writing the wonderful world of Alice in the Land of Wonderland, one of his motivations was the fact that he was against sort of quantum mechanics and this sort of, there's a new kind of mathematics where it wasn't Cartesian.
A or B, it was not like an and or, it was more of a if maybe.
It was like sort of holding the two answers in suspension at the same time.
Going back to the previous topic, I mentioned about trying to hold both dualistic ends together in your head as one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. It's really hard to see A and B together.
And then it's sort of this world where distances, like, you can grow and you can shrink. A human being isn't necessarily always the same size, sort of. So it's experimenting these sort of mathematical ideas applied to sort of reality. And like, what if, humans aren't a fixed size? And what if...
Well, I do know there's some work that some people did on isometric changes in size versus like body area and all that.
Okay.
That's a topic for maybe another day, because it involves a guy going onto the savannah and chasing down animals and monitoring how fast they were able to run.
Okay.
And apparently when you do that and take notes down, it's science. When you don't take notes down, it's animal cruelty. So take notes. Who knows what you learn?
And interestingly, like what you hear, I'm stealing from another podcast now. Shout out to 3.5 Sanctuary, 3.5 Private Sanctuary. Anyways, stealing from their podcast on Lovecraft. We already sort of know a lot of things about Lovecraft, but one of the things that sort of his reasons for writing, or the reasons he was able to sort of write popularly, was because he took these sort of these new ideas in science and in archaeology or
well, he definitely took nihilism to its ultimate extent.
Well, nihilism,
it
but I'm
doesn't matter. And what if it truly doesn't matter, at least for us? And I mean, he presents a very scary view of the cosmos, where humanity just doesn't mean anything.
Well, no, but the point I'm trying to make is that he took ideas that were sort of new in science and that were shattering pre-existing beliefs about. Mankind evolved from from like an ape sort of thing. So I'll write a story about where the guy turns out I suppose I'll put a spoiler alert here. I mean, the stories are like 90 years old now, but if you haven't read them, I think it's worth putting a spoiler alert. So I'll skip ahead a couple of minutes. So he writes a story where a guy finds out his ancestor, like one of his great grandparents or just grandparents. Was legitimately one or two greats.
was legitimately an ape, and so he winds up just going out into a field, pouring gasoline on himself and lighting himself up.
Yeah, because as if having an ape ancestor is that horrible of a.
Well, so I think it gives some very nice insight as to what it meant back then to be a certain type of person.
Mm-hmm.
Like this sort of thing, where if it found out you weren't like who you thought you were by virtue of your ancestry, you were a completely different person, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does, change exactly who you are. Because, right now, it does. If I found out, heck, one of my ancestors was a gray alien, that doesn't change who I am at all to me. Who I am is who I am. My ancestors are just a nice story that may have some correlations to who I am.
Yeah. I think we sort of share that in the modern age, in the Western world.
You go back to 1925, you find out one of your ancestors was not who you thought they were, and apparently that's justification for self-immolation.
Well, in that particular story, I guess that character thought that.
Or he'd take the concept of evolution and state, he'd do like a story about and then the people, these monks, they went underground for sensory deprivation, and it turns out they just started living down there forever, and then they kind of regress to a bestial state. It's like de-evolution, which I assume the story was really scary at the time. It was one of the first ones he wrote, but it's been used so many times since. I just really can't get scared over it. It's like, I totally saw that coming. I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you, M. Night Shyamalan. It's no longer a twist.
And that era too, in people were this was Indiana Jones type era where people were going around the world to discover lost civilizations.
Yeah, it was a time before the intelligent person was seen as a nerd, like a weak Poindexter sort of thing. Yeah. This was where if you go around the world to adventure, you got yourself some pipes, you got yourself a six-pack, and you are ready to fight. Because that's how they do archaeology, by golly.
Well, and just going to another country was dangerous because I suppose it still is in a lot of ways, but you sort of.
I wouldn't go to northern Mexico, for instance.
Well, you might because we have our modern day tourist industry, which is pretty much every country has.
Yeah, they do also have several hundred people dead a year. Most of them tourists who get kidnapped.
Yeah, so you want to watch out.
I'll go slightly farther south. There's some very nice things going on near the Yucatan Peninsula that you can get some very nice sights on, and they always do appreciate your patronage. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, let me put it this way: there are still lots of tourists who go to Mexico and don't get killed.
Yes. There are some places that are definitely safer than others, we can say.
I wouldn't even know about that, but I think the majority of people don't get killed, but then, it's if you're worried about sort of drug gangs and stuff like that.
Maybe you shouldn't be going to that town. Go hit some other place.
Well, I wouldn't go to Mexico at all, to be honest.
I don't know. If I was 10 years younger, single guy again, I'd probably want to hit Tijuana. At least for a little bit.
Well, I went to Tijuana as on a mission trip when I was like a teenager.
I was supposed to for my graduating year, but not enough people saved up the money, and so
it's too bad.
It's just going to be me and 4 other students.
What did you do with your money?
University.
Oh, okay.
I was responsible.
Can we get back on topic?
I suppose we can go back on topic if you want.
I don't know.
So do you think then that the horde that creeps in is inherently subjective to the person, or do you think it's something that some people will put in like, okay, no, we'll put in a creepy bit and then we'll go back?
Yeah, good question.
Or is it, because I'm remembering one bit that it keeps coming up, like you look up like high octane nightmare fuel on like the TV tropes thing, or anywhere online, and it'll keep coming up as a scene from the claymation Adventures of Mark Twain.
Okay.
Where the kids, go to a different floor in their weird trans-dimensional elevator, and there's a person who knows how to make things like move and animate, and he's just he's got a no face of his own. It's just like he's got one of those masks you hold up with your hand,
Okay.
Mask stick, and then you're holding it.
Sure.
And he moves around, and it's supposed to illustrate what life would be like if God actually was an uncaring kind of creature.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose it's supposed to show that God has to inherently be like a caring creator. Otherwise, this horrible existence would be reality.
Okay.
But watching it is kind of creepy. And, I mean, it's supposed to be like a wonderful land of adventure with Mark Twain as your host, and only he's made of clay.
Yeah.
And I do recall seeing it when I was young.
Well, hang on. What happened that was creepy?
He made creatures out of clay, and then, they're animated and they're doing stuff, and then he crushes them. No reason.
Oh.
Their life is completely meaningless, and this smack, crush, and then destroy, and then, cause, an earthquake to happen, they fall down the pits, they lose their loved ones, and then it gets crushed together. Their death is completely meaningless in a land with a...
clay figures.
But they're supposed to, what they represent is being the mortal figure.
Okay.
So in which case, it represents...
It's like God playing with humans.
It represents the whole thing of God being an uncaring entity, and that, honestly, I think maybe a scarier existence than Lovecraft's humanity doesn't matter, because we could matter, but we don't. In Lovecraft stuff, it's like we don't matter, we never could. All we were was like a statistical blip in the noise of the cosmos throughout time and space. That was all we are. We are just one mote of static on the TV of reality.
Okay. Yeah, that is, in a way that's comforting, sure, because...
It doesn't matter if you screw up your life. It's just not like we mattered at all. In the grand cosmic sense of things, nothing ever mattered, really. Which is depressing on one hand, but intensely liberating on another perspective. On the other hand, with the one that was showed with the Mark Twain, and this is a creator who could potentially be love us and care for us and show us the proper things, and we could grow in the warm basking light, and we could all matter, and we could all be caringful, be like a wonderful hippie commune dance or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But we don't. The creature that created us doesn't care whether we live or die, and it's only through sheer boredom that it interacts with us at all. I think that's even scarier than nihilism. That's like, and so that's why a lot of people find it to be a really disturbing scene. It's just the concept of such a level of, we don't matter. We could have, but we don't. Why? Because the person who created us can't find it to give a single damn. Find all those memes where it's like Spider-Man saying, "Oh, I tried to find a damn, but I couldn't." And all those funny little memes people post up on the forums. Yeah. Find all of them, and that's basically the entire gestalt of that scene. Not a single damn was given. And that's why you exist in the horrible world you do. That's a scary thought. Not horror in the, oh my god, creature coming out, at me with a knife, but a much more existential dread.
You can get in a certain state of mind where that's scary, but also sort of look around where you are, listening to this podcast, and I don't know if it's daytime or nighttime for wherever people are listening.
I hope it's one or the other, because if it's neither, boy, do you have the right topic for your situation.
It might be twilight, I guess, or
hey, even then, 7 minutes later, it'll be one or the other.
Okay, yeah, or dawn, or what's the other? Well, you might be like in an underground bunker.
Well, it's still one or the other, though.
I guess you have to be. Yeah. You could be in space.
In which case, 90 minutes later, you'll be back to where you started.
Unless you're not orbiting Earth, you could be on your way to Mars.
Oh, yes. You do need horizon for a dawn.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a lyric from one of Tom Smith's songs.
It's good.
Starlight and Saxophone. Give it a look-see.
I'll link it in the notes.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning, shift time. Only 5 more hours to go.
I think he gives it away for free, so you might be able to actually link the direct song itself.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's one of his freebies. There's no actual saxophone playing in there, but it's a nice, slow song.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. There are no saxophones.
Well, there's a saxophone within the song, but in the song itself, nobody plays a saxophone.
Oh, okay.
But there's a saxophone within the context of the story in the song.
Sing about a saxophone.
Yes.
It's a song about a saxophone, but not featuring.
About a guy in space traveling at 9/10 the speed of light. And he's just waiting for his shift to be over, and he's thinking about what life was like back on Earth. Mm-hmm. How he would play on the fire escape, his saxophone. And there was one person who actually cared, but they're so far away now. There's no sunrise, no sunset for them to play the saxophone because they're going through space. And you need a horizon for a dawn.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so now you don't need to download it because
Trust me, Tom Smith sings it a lot better than I can describe it. Besides, that's just a setup for what happens later on. I mean, I'm only giving you Act 1 here, folks, man. I'm not going to spoil that.
So yes, there are many different kinds of horror. Existential horror, like about...
See, but here's the thing, is when I watched the movie when I was young, I found it to be a bit of a downer scene, but I wouldn't say it truly scared me. But it was only later on when I had much more in my head that it truly hit me. It's like, whoa, this is really kind of nasty. It's like, this is like deeply, whoa.
Yeah, well, it might only be disturbing to adults because... kids like they play with toys and they're like, oh, he died, and oh, like.
And then the vehicle goes off the cliff.
You know, the bus goes off the cliff.
And then that's why you bring in like the fire truck and all that you got. It's like, oh boy, the fire truck comes and saves the day because otherwise why do you have the fire truck at all?
I like that as an interesting twist because I sort of came into this thinking like, oh, what adult movies are not scary for me as an adult, but scary for a kid. But the opposite. As there are things that scare adults but don't register for kids.
Or at least if it scares them, it's just a little bit, and then whatever, and they go on to the next bit. Because let's face it, sometimes with kids, well, especially with kids, once the immediate stimulus is out, it starts fading away quicker. Mm-hmm. When you're an adult, you remember thinking about things, and then later on at night, you're falling asleep, and it comes in, and your mind just won't let it go, and you just mull over it, and mull over it, and mull over it until it builds. Just builds like a snowball going down a hill.
And I have heard adults talk about how, like, seeing children hurt or killed. Or
I know since I became a parent, seeing anything like that really strikes more nerves than it ever used to.
But I don't hear that from kids. It's like, oh, somebody got hurt, it doesn't seem to matter if it was a kid or an adult for them. It's just somebody got hurt or somebody got killed or whatever,
So it's because they accept things on a more basic level then that it doesn't hit with them. You have to be more nuanced for it to catch.
I don't know. I think becoming an adult, you have responsibilities and you actually have to. Well, if you have younger siblings, I suppose this process begins earlier. But you care about what happens to. Not care about because you always care about what happens to other people. You always have empathy. But I think as an adult and also as a parent. I think you add some level of additional caring.
I think it is additional because I remember when my youngest brother Jason got hurt. There was a scaffolding on the side of our house from back when it was being built. We'd never torn it down. It was just there. It was rickety. No one ever stepped on it, except my brother Jason, who was crawling on it, and then he lost his balance, slipped and fell, and he wound up hurting his cheek. And if you ever look at him close enough on the cheek, you can find a little bit of that scar remaining. Just a little bit, but he scraped himself pretty good. But when I was young, I remember thinking, why did you do that? We were just an hour away from going to the Calgary Stampede. Why are you slowing us up? Yeah. Whereas now, considering the concept, like, my daughter, a few years older, she slips and falls. It raises my heart rate just thinking about it now. Just the concept of her hurting herself in any way. And, so as an adult, you definitely do gain more emotional resonance.
Now, do you think it's fair for movies and video games to play on those emotions? Or do you think that's... Because I've heard people say that's sort of out of bounds. Like, you shouldn't... In movies, they shouldn't have kids get hurt.
Well, here's the thing. In the original 1931 Frankenstein, a girl drowns.
Yeah. We could just finish up the
horror? Back to the horror?
The topic. It was supposed to be horror intruding on otherwise happy movies. And sort of, we went to some... Basically listed off a bunch of...
the tropes of the genre sort of thing.
Definitely in the category of horror movies. So,
also, especially notable parts where you can watch a horror movie and you're okay with most of it, but it's when it truly is like, whoa, dude, that was a kid that died. That's kind of cheap. No, further the plot. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but can we think of more examples of a comedy with, or like something...
Well, yeah, I know on TV tropes you have the term, the big-lipped alligator moment, when it's something so very jarringly out of place. Yeah. Based off of one of the movies when it's supposed to be a comedy, and then they have like a song and dance with alligators that have big lips. Why alligators have lips, why they have a song and dance. It's just so out of place that it shocks you.
Or like, I guess that reminds me of Little Shop of Horrors. In that's a comedy.
Yes, very much played as a comedy.
First of all, but it definitely has horror elements.
Especially depending on which ending you go with. I'm not sure if people know this, but the original ending, Aubrey 2 kills Aubrey, eats Seymour, grows big, buds off, and soon it's like several stories high, and it winds up that these giant aliens are destroying the city and eventually eat all of humanity.
Okay.
That didn't test out very well, though, so they rewrote the ending for the movie.
Either way, it still has elements that are...
Yes, otherwise it's very much played as a musical comedy, and yet he's hacking up a body in the one scene. And it's like, on the other hand, I mean, could you qualify that as one of the morally okay deaths? The man was an abuser. Some people are willing to justify.
Let me back up a second. There aren't morally okay deaths. It's
within the context of a movie.
Deaths that the person, I suppose, doing the murdering is like, well, they were a scumbag and they deserve to die. There's that, which is not to say they deserve that. Objectively, they deserve to die.
The death of a person weakens us all, sort of thing. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee, and all that. The death of everyone, even the worst of us, does reduce all of humanity by even a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's my real world, that's my baseline of morality. And then after that, we can move on to, so now...
That said, if someone's got to die, it has to happen. I mean...
It has to happen.
Well, that's the thing is there are people who do put into these whole tests whereby they'll put people into different situations and say, which one do you go with? And when you start making things really fine, like
the man on the train tracks and whether you divert the train. Okay, hopefully people already are familiar with
like a theological thing whereby you are at an area where you can switch the tracks from track A to track B. You can't stop the train.
Yeah.
If you select that it goes down the train line A, it will go over top of 5 people. If you select it to go over train line B, it'll go over 1 person. Which lane do you set it down to? Most people go with B under the reasoning, well, that's 4 people less dead. And then you start making, what if it was 1 important person versus 5 nobodies? What if it was like 1 unhealthy person versus 1 healthy person? And then you start dividing hairs as to see how people really divide up, which is
the other
moral.
Moral question they add to that, too, is changing it from being a switch track to just, there's a dude in front of a big dude that you could actually push onto the tracks, he's just standing.
And they would stop it. It would stop it from going down and killing any of the group people down the line.
So would you push him onto the tracks to stop? And you're.
By the way, that is a bit of a trick question. The answer is no. You yourself would have to jump onto the track to try and divert it.
Well, what if the guy is a lot bigger than you? You need to be assured of his...
You cannot take and purposefully kill a person under any morally justifiable ends. The best you can do is hope your own body is able to do it, because if you're going to sacrifice 1 person, it should be yourself first.
Oh, okay, well that's...
that is how the morality is supposed to go, although most people will put it in different ways, and that's not how they'll actually go. They'll try... What's the thing? Not a lot of people will see option C when they're presented with A or B.
Well, and yeah, of course.
That is a good lesson to learn, I think, for anybody, is to try and find that hidden option.
And the problem with those puzzles, or whatever you want to call them, is in real life you can't be certain that, pushing them out of the track, they won't die anyway. So.
Yeah. And, well, the thing is that in real life there's so many more variables. Like, the option is, if you, versus line A versus B, is you quickly flip the switch back and forth so that the train derails. I don't know how many people crash then, but at least it's not a guaranteed death, right?
At least you tried something. I don't know. Does that make you feel better?
Well, that's the thing. Is by switching on to option A, you would be effectively saying, I will have these people die. Yeah. Put it onto track B, I will have these people die. By switching the track back and forth rapidly, you try and jam the system, try and derail the train. Yeah. That way you can at least say, well, even if it's a passenger thing full of people, it's less likely to result in the automatic guaranteed deaths. So that way I'm doing the best I can for preventing any deaths from happening.
Well, yeah, I guess.
But I'm pretty sure the people presenting those options to you get really mad when you start giving those extra answers. And then next thing you know, I'm sorry, this psychological test is off. No, you don't get your $25. Please just leave.
Yeah,
so
I've
there's
been in that, so,
yeah, there's options that may not get you what you want in the end either way. But there isn't always there's always a third option if you're willing to look hard enough. So extra little point of lesson for you.
Well, you can always convince yourself that there's a third option. It may end up being one of the other two, but if you believe in taking the third option, you're somehow absolving yourself of choice, I suppose.
I don't prefer either of these options. I will try my best to find the third option. Even if it doesn't work out, then I can at least say I tried to find a better option than what I was presented with, obliquely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess
that's another tangent for its own sort of thing.
Tangent. In fact, we've been going a bit over time, so let's see. We got to.
So the horror stuff. Yeah. Then for the stuff that's unintentional, that's just maybe that's just a values dissonance. Some people thought they saw, oh, it's just an interesting little scene.
It's just pirates, they just shoot each other.
And then he shoots the guy, to prove, aha, I'm a villain, and pirate life is cheap. And technically that's all true, but it seems a little weird. So it's just it didn't play out as well as they'd hoped. Maybe in shooting the scene, it didn't come off as well as it was written. Because sometimes it doesn't translate well when you're switching the media formats around.
It's probably about basically equivalent. I think, I imagine on the written, because it's a very simple scene. It's just pirate gets mad, or pirate says the wrong thing, other pirate gets mad, shoots the other pirate, and everybody laughs. Yeah. So it's I think that's straightforward.
But in the shot, in the end production, it didn't get across what they were trying to convey, because you saw it, it's like, whoa, now he's dead? Nobody laughed, so it didn't come across as being as, I suppose, like Tom and Jerry, violent humor sort of thing, where everyone's okay.
I don't know, because maybe they sort of, they meant for it to be awkward.
What if instead, he just shoots him in the leg, it's it's a peg leg for sure there. And then later on they show him walking around with a peg leg.
I think that would sort of appease the audience, or they wouldn't have the same...
It's like, whoa, now he's dead? Like his life meant nothing? All he was there was to just be shot and die? That's it? Yeah. So in that case, maybe they probably could have worked a little harder to rate it a little differently?
Well, no, because, maybe we're not talking about
to get what they intended for.
Because maybe the intention was that the audience is supposed to feel something bad there.
To really show Hook as a villain, then?
To show the Hook and the pirates are bad guys. So then later on in the show, it's okay if the Lost Boys start killing them.
Because, a lot of the whole, I can't swim, but they're getting knocked off their own boat sort of thing. So
I guess they drown.
Or, sharks and alligators and all those sorts of weird beasties. Mermaids, too, because let's face it, remember the original mermaids in the Peter Pan, they would drown you if you weren't careful. So I suppose we should throw mermaids in with alligators and sharks. Yeah. Which make for a heck of a 1-2-3 combo. I'm just working them all together in my mind. That's kind of bad arse. So in that case, the scenes where it's not intended, maybe it's more acceptable than when they... Okay, now we'll do something quickly scary and go back to the fun. Or something deep and disturbing, like, I thought these were big, strong hands. It's like, whoa, that was too grim. Back it off a little bit, man. Back it off a little bit.
Yeah, well, No.
I'm trying to save my friends, but everywhere I go, we keep finding the nothing. How long can I keep saving them from the nothing? In which case, there's like the sliver of hope. I mean, in later on in the movie, it's like everybody's essentially dead.
But
all the lands of Fantasia are destroyed.
I can't say that the downer moments or the jarring moments, I can't say that those are mistakes or wrong or that they shouldn't.
Well, okay, there was a technical mistake in that movie when the horse was going down in the swamp of sorrows. You get too sad and you get swallowed up. The horse was actually panicking as it was going down. Thought it was drowning.
The actor horse? Is it?
As much as an actor horse actually is, like an actor horse. But it was legitimately panicking. So if you do feel like, whoa, this is really scary, that just means you've got good empathy for horses.
Okay.
Consider taking riding up as a hobby. You apparently have a good connection with horses, because that scene was very scary for the horse.
Okay.
So that's a completely different scene. I don't even know if they should have kept it in there. I mean, I hear some stories where it's like the horse drowned in there, man. That horse was dead. I don't know how much truth that is to it, because I keep hearing things one or the other, and I can't get a verifiable source.
Well, just look for the little message at the end of the movie. No animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Maybe I do have a copy of it on VHS. I might have to hunt it down and check at the end. It's a good excuse to watch the movie. It's a good movie to watch every now and then, right? That's the Sebastian part I'm okay with forgetting. His acting was not up to snuff, in my opinion. It played out a little hokey.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. I'm sure he's a great actor now. Kid actors, though, hit or miss.
Sure, yeah.
So yes, so this back to the main point though, the horror stuff that wasn't intended to be that grim, that dark. And that's just bit of a dissonance, didn't work out how they planned.
Okay, yeah.
So be it. But the stuff they did plan, and then we shock you for a little bit, horror, Okay, now back to comedy. Is that forgivable at all, or was that just kind of cheap and mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like it hurt. Like it's not like it hurts to have scenes of horror, of like bad stuff happening in a comedy. It's not like that's scarring. I don't think it is, anyways. I mean, I think you get over seeing something like that in a movie because it's not real. So I think it basically is forgivable. I don't know if it's necessary. Like that's something you can probably cut out, but maybe it is necessary just to keep things moving
different
and
keep the audience awake. In which case, maybe you should have just written something better.
Yeah.
In the end, I'll put it down to being equivalent to like badly mixed food. Like when you get like a tuna fish sandwich and you bite into the bit and it's like, it's all dry. It's just tuna. There's no like mayonnaise in here. It's badly mixed.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I take it as. It's like disappointing.
Yeah, probably something like that. And it's probably
you could have done so much better.
Yeah.
Versus the it was just an accident sort of thing. It's like no, there's not enough tuna fish on this part of the sandwich. It happens. So.
Yeah.
It's forgivable.
Well, I mean, if I can bring up one more point, is that sometimes what happens in movies is people will tell the story of, and then a dude gets shot, you should see it, it's awesome, or, this is sort of the teenager reporting back to his friends, or, 10-year-old reporting back to his friends about this adult movie he saw, and some dude got shot in it, like right on it, and so he tells that story, maybe that sells tickets, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I do remember telling my parents about some stuff like the movies I saw, and I was like, it was great, but then there was this really weird bit, and I don't really get that.
Yeah.
And I mean, some stuff was kind of creepy, some stuff was like, well, I don't really understand, because I was young. Well, I was a little too young watching some of the movies in retrospect. It's like, well,
sure.
maybe I should have held off a year or two, maybe seen something a little easier on the mind.
I guess
I saw Predator way too young.
Yeah. And the dude gets shot, and then
his skin was missing. He was hanging upside down, and he had no skin. Like, what was going on there? And it's later on in there, all of a sudden they hear something in the woods, and they're firing all their weapons, and the trees are falling, and they're just firing weapons, and the trees are falling, and so they make a clearing just because I shot everything. But not the thing that they tried to. It escaped. Yeah. That was a memorable scene from that, where they're all panicking, and the guy's got like the minigun, and he takes out, and the trees are just falling because he's effectively got a line of lead as he's firing it out.
Yeah, which I think the Mythbusters did an episode on whether you can chop a tree down with a machine gun.
The end result is, does it really matter? You're using a machine gun to have fun. If the tree falls, that's bonus.
Yeah, I guess we don't need to spoil it. If you want to find out what happens, you'll have to look up that Mythbusters episode.
In the end, though, the answer is ultimately moot. shooting a lot of weapons, fire, at something, it's its own reward sometimes. It doesn't need to have a greater point. And depending who you talk to, maybe just firing for no reason at something inanimate is a lot better than firing it at something moving. That's a morals call, though.
All right, so we're about done?
Yes. Sorry.
Thanks for listening this long, listeners. This one
wonderfully
has been a little
tangential.
bit longer than usual. Let's see, we have an email address,
yes.
simulationist@gmail.com. We have all the social networks, well, not all of them covered, but we have Facebook, we have YouTube.
We're not on MySpace, but who is these days?
Type in the Simulationist on any social network. If you don't see something, hey, make a fan page or whatever. What else?
Make a mock anti-page. See if we can get a little rivalry going.
If you're not already subscribed to us on iTunes, that's probably the best way to do it, or use your favorite podcast subscription service. We should be available there. If we're not, let us know, and I can probably add us on to whatever service you use. And I think...
There are a bit other tangents I could have gone on, but I think that's good enough for tonight.
Another tangent. We'll see you again next week, same time. Download us first thing Monday morning, and we'll talk to you then.
Take care out there.
Okay. This one.